Howdy folks, I'm Dean Deleo.
And I'm Chester Bennington. We're from Stone Temple Pilots, and you are watching Artisan News.
What I'm interested in is the collaborative spirit between you and these guys. So I would have loved to be a fly on the wall. I mean, how does the process kick off? Does the music start first? Do you come in with like lyrics, or how does this whole thing?
You know, the writing process is so organic. Kind of.
He has how many ideas you come in with? Answer him, Chester.
A lot.
Yeah. 12 a day.
You know, I always record my little ideas into my phone. I've got about 400 of them in here. And so, yeah, but it's interesting because right away when we first started, you know, getting together and talking about making music, you know, after our first meeting of us kind of sitting down and saying, okay, let's do this. We're really excited about it. Be fun to get to know each other. You know, that night, I think each of us, myself, Dean, and Robert, like each came up with like 3 new song ideas because we were so pumped. And it just kept snowballing from there. And the process was really easy. And I think for us, we took advantage of our time together. And when we sat down, we kind of jammed, which was something that neither of us have really done very much of in a very long time. And we kind of wrote that way, which was cool because it got everybody's juices flowing. You know, it seemed like every single day Dean would come in with a you know, really great riff, or Robert would come in with a great riff, and that just kind of turned into you know, the first batch of songs which we recorded as the EP. And I think we still have probably 15 or more ideas that we kind of stopped on, so we could focus on the tracks that we were moving faster on in terms of the EP. So it's been a really, really good, very fertile experience.
Dean, I want to find out different approach, knowing his tonality, the way he speaks. Did that influence the way that you write riffs, or the way that you write songs?
It definitely did, and that was one thing that was interesting about this writing session, is that sessions in the past, I would normally bring stuff out that I had laying around for years, where everything was very fresh. Everything came about. For instance, there's a song, pretty much everything was written pretty much on the spot, day of, you know. Cry, Cry, you know, Chester came in with that idea. It was really, everything saw the light in its life, like, day of. So it was really cool. And I was able to, like, kind of, because of Chester's range, I was, you know, as a guitar player, able to really explore different keys and, you know, different chordings, and, you know, which leads to like different textures and things like that.
And is there, Chester, in your mind, is there a different approach as far as you creating and doing stuff for STP and Linkin Park? Is there a definite delineation there?
I think that for me, because I've always been such a big fan of STP, I really understand the vibe, and I understand the difference between the style of Linkin Park and the style of STP. And when I work with Linkin Park, you know, it's usually me and Mike in a room, and Mike he's an extremely prolific writer. He's an excellent engineer. He's a really good producer. He has a clear vision of what he wants me to do. And so, like, you know, I'll go in and I'll sing with a bunch of vibrato and kind of like have my little twang in there. And Mike's like, no, sing it straight, lose the you know, and so I'm from the Southwest, so I've got there's a little bit of a twang that comes in there, and so Mike kind of pulls that sound out of me. You know, there'll be takes that I kind of feel like could be sung more technically sound, and Mike will be like, no, I like that because it sounds vulnerable, you know, and so we'll keep that. And so it's really interesting working with Mike. Whereas like in STP, it's a lot more sexy. I can get down with my vibrato. My little twang is okay.
We like to
and,
twang,
and,
man.
and also, you know, I kind of want to be myself, but I also want to make sure that it feels like STP. I think that kind of influences just the way that I approach singing when I get in the booth. I just kind of sing the song the way I feel like it should be sung for STP. At the same time, you know, by still maintaining my own identity and, you know, not trying to just sound like all the songs that I've learned, you know, in my life.
As you go through the rehearsal process and choosing a set list, were there certain songs that you tried that you're like, well, I don't know if that works so well, and were there certain songs that definitely hit the spot that you were kind of right in the wheelhouse with? And what are some of the stronger songs that you do, and what are some of the songs that maybe you leave out of the set that you just didn't play?
Scott has a much lower range than I do. You know, I have a higher pitch voice, so I kind of had to train myself to hit those some of the songs in the lower register a little bit. So the first week of rehearsals, you know, my voice was getting tired and hoarse, and all these weird things were going on because I was using it in a much different way than I had ever used it before. And so, but when we did pick the songs, we wanted to pick songs that were, one, in my register, and two, that kind of, I felt like when I put the set list together, I felt like these are the songs that I would want to hear if I was coming to the STP show. I know that there's a lot of songs that they have never played or played a long time ago, very few times. And obviously still do a lot of the songs that people are familiar with, the hits and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually a pretty easy process to figure out which songs we want to do.
Well, I just know, coming into rehearsal with Chester, I know that I have to be really prepared. I mean, these are songs that I've been married to for a long time. He comes in ready to go. Like, ready to go. But what's interesting, man, is there was only a couple of songs, but I mean, I think I spoke up first. Where I was like, I don't know if I'm really feeling the lyrical content of this. Mm-hmm. I mean, life is in a much different place nowadays, you know? And I don't know if I was just feeling a couple things lyrically.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because to me, they're just really great songs. You know, I'm like, oh, I love this song. I like it for the melody. I never even really cared about the words because I've always been a melody person. I usually get the words wrong on the songs that I like. I'm focused primarily on the feeling of the song and of the melody. And so for me, it was just like, yeah, let's do this. And it's true, though. There are certain songs that kind of feel like they just belong in the past. And then there are other songs that just feel great.
Yeah.
You know, and the set list we've got put together on this tour, especially for these first couple shows, they're pretty kick-ass.
You guys hip with that 70s song, Do the Hustle? Do, 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 do.
Yeah.
I always thought they were saying, turn the lights off.
Turn the lights off.
Yeah. Oh, that's Do the Hustle?
Dude, my sister, who lives in New Jersey, actually, she, for the longest time, you know that the Ramones song, I Want to Be Sedated?
Yeah.
She always thought it said, I want a piece of Lydia. So she'd be like, ba, 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 I want a piece of Lydia. And I was like, what the f*** are you saying?
Oh.
I want a piece of Lydia. I'm like, I want to be sedated.
Oh, it's so good.
She's like, no. I was like, yeah, it's the song title, sweetheart.
That's so good. I want a piece of Lydia.
And I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. But, you know, I read an interview with Robert. He basically said that you guys had no other choice but to kind of move in this direction. Do you feel a similar way to Robert?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. You know, it was one man's actions that led to another man's decision.
Even last year, you know, at the Paramount, which I thought was a great show, and it seemed like, you know, things was the communication breaking down at that point, or at what point did the communication just start to dissolve?
1994? Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because I think that, like, with this particular case, just as a fan, you know, kind of knowing secondhand what was going on with these guys, you always hope things would come together and they could start being, you know, really creative and productive. And so, that's one of the reasons why it was easy for me to say yes. It was because I knew that these guys, in some way or another, had tried in many different ways for a long, long time to get things to work. And so, it was. I think it was the right time. It's a little serendipitous the way things came together. About 9 years ago, I met my wife, and something was going on with STP, and things were really bad. And I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys give me a call, because I said I don't really know who else could do this. Right? I don't know of anybody who else could do this. And I was kind of joking around.
Well, that's what we
And
thought.
then 10 years later, 10 years later, I get a call, and I was just like, I called my wife and I go, "Can you believe this is happening? Like, this is weird." And she was like, "Yeah, this is really crazy." And
beautiful.
So it's I think that that these guys really have on all fronts have really tried to do things the right way, and so this is the way things are going to go from now on.
Yeah, and the communication never broke down between the three of us, meaning Robert, Eric, and myself. There's always been an immense amount of respect and love and honor and commitment, and it just there's only so much, man. I can go to my grave saying I gave it my all. I really did. As for all of us, really.
And knowing the reverence that you have for this band, and I also have for the band, but knowing that to be the fact, did you ever think that you were coming in between? Because I know you have respect for Scott, even
Of course,
though what
yeah.
happened. So you do
Absolutely.
have respect for him. So was it strange? Was it weird? Did you feel like...
It was when my instant gut reaction, which is usually the right action to do, especially on big things like this, was yes. And I do have a lot of respect for Scott, and at the same time, once I said yes, that was when I was like, oh, I just said yes, and this is pretty heavy. This is a lot of responsibility, and it needs to be done with dignity, and it needs to be done with respect, and we need to move forward in a way that is positive, because this is a new chapter. We need to honor the past.
Are we allowed to curse?
And do the and do the right thing, and at the same time, we need to start focusing on what lies ahead of us, and not be too focused on what was going on in the past, because they could get pretty dark, and so it was definitely one of those things where for a while, especially in the very first moments, it was like, I get a lot of anxiety about it, and I was concerned about things that feel bad about doing something like this. I'd realize and remember that, this has been a long struggle, and that this is not a surprise for a lot of people. And also that, there's going to be a lot of people who are stoked about this, and then there's going to be a lot of people who want me to go shoot myself in the face publicly, which is totally understandable. And so, we decided early on, we're just going to...
Well, never judge a man unless you've walked in his shoes, and I'll tell you, man, we've been through a lot.
Yeah.
We've been through a lot. It's a drag when your dreams get cut short, when your dream is handed to you, And, I asked if we could curse, because he's awesome. I love him. And you know what? The most amazing thing is, he doesn't have to do this. Linkin Park plays to 100,000 people a week when they're on the road. He's doing this for the love of this band and the music we're moving forward with, and all the music we're going to allow you to dip your mind. And man, I'm grateful. I'm really, really, really grateful, and feel really fortunate. Thanks, Chester.
Thank you. It was very nice of you.
And, speaking of that and kind of the new creative force, I obviously wanted to figure out what was Out of Time the first song that you guys, put out there, and was there any other song that we find on the EP that you think is as magical as that for High Rise?
I know what you're going to say.
Dude, there's a lot of... I think the whole thing was pretty magical. Our next single that's going to come out is called Blackheart. That song, the riff was so good, and it was like there was such a vibe, and I was struggling with finding the right story to tell. And that one went right to the last minute possible. I had to leave to go to rehearsal the next day for the Linkin Park tour in Asia. And, we had to finish the EP, and we were, I wrote those lyrics the day I sang those suckers.
Yeah.
And we did that thing until almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just wrecked. I mean, my voice was like...
I was like, Shinoda's going to be calling me.
Yeah, dude.
He's out, man. You're killing him.
Dude, it was gnarly. And then it comes together, and it was just like, I can't believe how good the song is,
right?
man.
Me too.
Each one of those kind of has a magical moment, you know. Cry Cry, I was like sitting down, and I started playing this riff, and I came up with this melody really fast. Wrote the lyrics down, I walked in, and I was like, I was playing it, kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I think it was either Dean or Robert was like, "What's that?" "Oh, it's just a thing I wrote on the couch before I came here." And like, "Let's record that." So all of a sudden we're like in there like recording the song. It was just like, and then it was done. Like within like a couple days. It was just a trip, man. It was just like that. That's
the task here, reeling him in. You see, with like 8 songs a day. Check this out. And you're like, wow, that's great. You know?
Yeah.
You played a really cool thing. You played, it was up here. It was like kind of like a hammer-on thing. You played, you know what I'm talking about, right? That made me misty that day.
Well, thank you. We have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of songs to get done. Yeah.
So let's touch on that. What's the time frame here, and you know, sort of an addendum to that? How do you fit in, you know, Linkin Park compared to? Because I hear news of an EP, and I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah.
So
you know, it's like it's interesting because you know we're completely independent, which means that we can kind of do whatever we want, you know, and so. Basically, we knew we didn't have enough time to write it and record an entire album, but we wanted to put something out that felt like it was a significant amount of music. People could see that we were passionate about this. They could hear a new vibe. They could see, you know, they can feel the Deleo brothers like just doing their thing. And so we decided to do an EP. We're going to take advantage of all the time we have. You know, Linkin Park is like, it's my life. It's the thing I love the most in my world besides my family. And so knowing that coming into this, I had to make this my life as well. And so I think that we're in a very unique position to release music when we can. And we don't have to hold off on a single for a year until I get back out and we can go in and make a record. We can write a record in a day, record it, get it mixed and mastered, and put it out. Yeah. And in some cases that might be the way we deliver music. We might be delivering an album. We might hold certain tracks to make into an album while we're releasing other tracks. We have complete freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want to. And especially the way people are consuming music now, you know, people don't buy records anyways. They go and buy their song and then they listen for 15 seconds and make a judgment on whether they like the rest of them. That's why another reason why I feel like this is the right time. Given the circumstances, I mean, it kind of every small little thing that could go in our way can, you know, in terms of time and in terms of the way people listen to music and how we can work together and the comfort level of Linkin Park being cool with me going and doing this and
so supportive.
It's pretty cool.
Like so cool, sweet, thoughtful. Like actually like, you know, anything we can do, you guys, like anything we can do for you, like offering help, Shinoda offering his service. I mean, really, it's just pretty amazing, man.
Does this have any special significance because you're a New Jersey guy? You know, this place, I think.
Well, absolutely it does.
They remodeled it after the hurricane.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you know, although I've been in California for, you know, 25 years, I guess, 27 years. This is what's in my bones, you know. And my cousins grew up right up the street. Sayreville. One of my fond, you know, wildest memories was my Uncle Bob, who was the youngest of 4, 3 boys and a girl. My mom was the only girl. Pretty amazing family. I remember one Easter we went up to Uncle Bob and Aunt Jackie's house, and my uncle got like 20-some white rabbits to run around the backyard when we were kids. You know, this was like right up the street. Yeah, it was like, and it was just like, you know, that kind of Jersey family thing, you know, cutting up watermelon and burgers on the grill, and so I have fond memories of Sayreville, you know, and of course growing up down in Point Pleasant, man, this place is in my bones. Yeah.
And you know, one of the things I've always marveled at you with the guitar is that you probably grew up a lot like something a little bit different, doing something different. What was your kind of trip into using certain modalities and certain variations of some of your?
Oh, you know, I think a lot of that actually comes from the loving, competitive nature of having Robert in the band, because Robert is, you know, I'd like to take credit for it, but Robert's responsible for writing some of the band's biggest songs, Interstate, Plush. You know, Robert wrote that stuff on guitar. So I was kind of merely trying to be like, oh, really? You know that chord? Well, watch this! You know, and it led to, like, and Robert was such a virtuoso, you know. I would come home, and he would just be like, hey, man, check out what I just learned. He would play, like, Mood for a Day off Yes, Fragile. I'd be like, wow. And Robert has this thing, like, you know, some cats can play songs, but Robert would play it right.
Yeah.
You know, like you're like, wow, really gifted, where I did not have that ability. So I just started trying to learn Kiss and Sabbath tunes. They were pretty basic, and I had a fairly easy time with that. And then when that got a little too difficult, I was like, well, I'm just going to write my own. And I actually wrote, like, Big Empty and Army Ants and stuff when I was, like, 16.
It's a trip, dude. I have to say, these guys have their own, they have a style that's like, it's so signature and it's so good. And I mean, just being, like, there were moments when we were in the studio and I'm just sitting there kind of, you know, thinking to myself, like, dude, I'm sitting in here with Dean and Robert and we're writing songs together and they're better than I thought they were, you know, like and I thought they were the best, you know? So, dude, it's like I'm sitting here just going, this is the coolest experience. And, you know, like, I don't care if the whole world hates that I'm doing this. I'm in here with these guys making music and they can all suck my, you know, and so, man. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's like the level of musicianship and the quality of the riffs and just the style and the technique. It's like undeniable when you hear it. You know exactly what you're hearing, you know, and that's like one of the most difficult things to do as a musician is make music that when you hear the very first note, you know exactly who it is. And these guys do that, you know, they do that. And, you know, even to this day, you know, Robert will come in and he'll be like, check this out. And he's got his acoustic. He's like, you know, he plays the riff for Blackheart.
Yeah,
and that becomes the thing. You know, he sends a voice memo over, and he's playing his bass with not plugged in, just bare bones. And he sends over the riff for Out of Time, and it's like, okay, I've got 50 freaking melody ideas. It's like we could do this all day.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's really difficult to do is, especially for a singer, is like make music that immediately evokes melodies and a variety. And that's the other really sweet spot in the way these guys write is like everything that comes out. I mean, Dean will be sitting there playing a riff he's making up, and I'm just like singing along, and like we kind of automatically know where the changes are gonna go, and it's like we're looking at each other going, I'm like, when did you write that? He's like, I'm right now, you know, and I'm like, oh, you know, and it's like we're coming up with stuff like full songs, you know, riff wise and melody wise on the fly without even talking about it first.
It's almost like you're tapping into something.
It's, dude, it's a trip, man. It really is. It's really trippy.